Hi guys, thanks very much for joining this course. This is actually a course which tries to present how a web application is built up, and I'm trying to explain this in a very easy way so that everyone can understand it. So this is a schema, or it's a kind of picture about how web application is built up. Well, basically, let's talk about what a web application is. So we can make a difference between three different types of applications. The first one is a web application. It means when we use this, actually we can see it and we can use it in our browser. It can be any browser. It can be Opera, Firefox, or Google Chrome, or different other browsers which are on the market. And this application appears in the web browser. Um, you know, if we talk about a desktop application, it's completely different because you just have to click on an icon, and once you click on the icon, the application comes up, and you don't really need internet access. Um, you can have, but it's not that important. The third type is a mobile application. It's running on your mobile phone, on your smartphone, or your tablet, so you can use those applications. So a web application looks like this, and let's see the introduction from the right to the left. So the first part is the front end. What do we call front end? Basically, a front end is a user interface, and this is what we see in our browser. It can be consisting of different types of elements like a picture, a text, different radio buttons, and other elements. So that's called the front end. And of course, it's written in a code. It can be different codes. We were talking about this later. And once this front end is written, let's see what's happening. So we open our browser, we call in the application we want to use, and then we see a form. This form has to be filled out. And let's say there are three different fields. First one is the name, second one is the email address, and the third one is the telephone number, and there is a submit button. So we click on the submit button and let's see what's happening. We will send a request to an endpoint. This can be REST request or SOAP request. In this example, we are going to discuss the REST request, and I will explain later in detail what a REST request means. And once this REST request is sent to the endpoint with the message we filled out on the form, then it will be sent to the backend. What's the backend? Basically, we don't see the backend, so a user will never see the backend. It's written in a code, it is on a server, and basically this backend is responsible for taking the information coming from the front end, so taking this request, and if it's needed, it should be transformed. If not, it should not be transformed, and this backend will send it to the database. In the database, it's gonna be stored, and once it's stored, we will get back a response to the backend that it was successful, and the backend will send a message to the endpoint that the transaction was successful, and the front end will receive this as well. So the user will know if the data he was trying to submit arrived in the database or was rejected, so did not arrive. So that's how we show the user through this message that it was successful or was not. Basically, that's the process, how it's working if we want to send data from the front end. But what if we want to see data? That means when we call a web page and we will see different information there, let's say car brands and car types and prices. So we see in a long list. The way how it's working when we call this website, actually the information will come from the database to the backend, and from the back end to the endpoint, from the endpoint to the front end, and that's how we can visualize this data on the front end side. I think that's not a complicated process. We will see it later on how to write code to that, and we will analyze the different elements like the database, backend, endpoint, and front end one by one, and you will understand how to write a code and how to make it function. Thank you. That would be the first lesson, and I hope you enjoyed that. And let's continue with the next one. See you later.